Alright, scratch everything you heard me say about whatever. I'm kind of I don't even know how to say that. Appalled. I awoke. I don't know. I want to talk about pornography. I want to talk about pornography for one reason, because I am trapped in it. That's one reason. But also because I have watched this stuff for years. Since I was 16, I started and I couldn't stop. Couldn't stop. Now I'm 34 years old. And you could say, maybe I'm attractive, right? You know, I'm a young man. You know, I'm in good physical shape. You know, I know how to cook. I know how to do all these things that you see me doing. I'm incredibly creative. You often see me talking here with a smile. You know, sometimes a bit more intense. But when the camera is off, you have no idea what I'm doing. You don't know what I do. You don't know who I am. You don't know anything about me. And yet there's like more than 500 videos on YouTube made or featuring me. And the one thing I realize is that living in the internet is an extremely empty experience, or an extremely empty way of life. It is incredibly empty, and I think most of my life I've tried to find meaning in being on the internet, but I have to say that it's a completely empty existence, because there's no real exchange. Everything happens through a screen. Everything happens through a keyboard. I cannot go and touch you. I cannot do anything. I can look at you through a screen, and that's all there is. And so at a certain point, you want to get a feeling out of this. Because that's what we came here for, right? I mean, we want to feel something, isn't it? We want to feel alive. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a little bit anxious because this is a very intense topic. I have to really keep myself from just shouting, because there's also a lot of shame, there's a lot of frustration that comes along with watching porn. So, you know, one possible reason why I could never stop is because the first time that I watched it, I probably felt so ashamed of having done that, that I simply felt like I have to continue now, right? It's like being angry at someone, and you just can't stop. You just cannot stop being angry. And that's the same thing with shame, right? Once you open your doors to shame, you either accept that you've done it, or you keep doing it and tell yourself that it's actually not as bad. And so I can look at porn, I can watch pornography, and I can do with it whatever I want, right? I can watch it like a movie. I can observe it, I can use it to make myself feel better. Well, what I've done with it is I learned from it. Yes, I used it to push through, like drinking coffee. If I felt like there was a resistance in me and I wanted to still work, then I used pornography to push myself behind the barrier so that I would jumpstart my system. Whenever I would fall into a depression, I would use pornography to lift myself out of it. Which has the side effect that you're trying to get out of a depression, but you're just creating the foundation of your next depression. Because what a depression is basically a low point in energy. And when I'm trying to waste energy to get out of a low point, then momentarily I will feel better. But on the long run, it sounds a lot like a trap. And maybe we've tried to use pornography to think, I don't know, to give other people something. I don't know why we do that. I think it's often, how it started. It didn't start as people filming themselves at home. It started as movie makers that wanted to film other people having sex. And generally, how that happens is, you've got kind of sick and twisted movie makers that have to find traumatized people that are desperate enough to be liked so that they would let themselves be filmed having sex in front of a camera. It's probably people who really want to have love, and then they start doing this, right? It's like if you feel really lonely, then filming yourself naked and doing things with a partner or alone is suddenly very attractive because you have the feeling, because that's what you want. So you think, if I show myself out in the open doing what I do, people will say, oh yeah, he's a really great guy. Oh man, look how he's having sex. Oh, look how awesome she can work with that dildo or something. You see, there's a lot of background to pornography, why we do it. And a lot of it probably happens in early childhood. But it's also simply misinformation, right? It's like people are trying to act like porn is something really great. And the people who don't think it's great, they just stay away from it. There's probably a lot of parents out there, and what we have to do is, show this to them. Do you realize that this is what your child is watching? Do you realize that in 10 years' time, your child is probably going to film himself having sex with his girlfriend? And then you can look at how they're having sex. That has nothing to do with love anymore. That's just frustration, that's just aggression. That's basically rape. And then they get each other because now they're being filmed, so they have the feeling, oh wow, there's a lot of expectations that we need to fulfill. And they want to be liked, and they want to have likes on the internet, right? They want to be like, they want to have people that say, oh yeah, you're super sexy. You're super sexy. Oh, you're so great, you're so great. And they are willing to do a lot for that because they don't get the love that they need out of the relationships that they have, and they don't have the love that they need inside of them. If I would be completely happy and in an environment where, I would be with a woman that really likes me and she gives me love and I really like her and I give her love. What we really want is somebody to love. But the people we are with, they don't really want our love. Not really. Sometimes you have people that are like this, where you just get together and, you give and you receive and it's equal. But how many such relationships do you know? I don't know many such relationships. You know, it's like this kind of, you know, I'll just take what I can and then I'll keep it for myself. I'll just take what I can and then I just keep it for myself. And then there's people, yeah, I can say like me, who want to give, and they give and they give and they give and they give, and it never seems enough. It never seems enough. So no matter how much porn you do, they'll never like you for that. And no matter how many videos you make, they won't like you better. I mean, I see children walking around here and I think in 10 years' time she might be doing porn. Because she might end up having a boyfriend, because in this system what we advertise is casual sexuality without strings attached, and then the doctor prescribes you the pill and your parents say, yeah, you should take the pill because if you have sex, right, at least you won't get pregnant. And there's the foundation for you. Now you get your child hooked on sex. And your child thinks, whoa, it's so great to have sex. And then what happens? And then what happens? You know, we have to think about these things. You're telling your child to take the anti-birthing pill. You're basically turning her into a whore. And you think that's normal as parents. You think that's normal. Well, the new normal is sitting on Pornhub flashing her tits. That's what we've created by telling children that sexuality is something casual. Yeah, you don't have to get pregnant anymore. You can just screw around. Have you seen people who've done that a lot? Have you seen people who screw around a lot? Like, have you really seen them? Have you really looked at them? I talked with a woman once. She was an experienced woman. And she said that the experience she has is that most women that are prostitutes, that prostitute themselves, have a history of sexual abuse. Now, what do you think porn is? Don't you think that all these young girls, they just get abused sexually? You know, as a man, you don't even have to touch a woman to abuse her sexually. You know, I've been abused by women, by being judged for the way my calves look. That's, for me, it's a way to abuse me. Because abuse has also the word kind of use in it, right? You use somebody else to torture them and to make yourself feel better. Because you feel terrible and at least you can control the happiness of another person. Now that's kind of gossip. And we're living in the age of Instagram. And social media. So everybody's like drawn to the outside. They want to show, oh, you know, I'm really pretty. But, you know, it's a feeling that you have. You feel pretty on the outside. No, you feel pretty on the inside. You can try to carry that feeling around on the outside, but it won't work. Because it's always fake. It's a facade. It's a mask. And you know, it shows very clearly anyone who has spent a great deal with porn can literally use that to understand what is going on. I've spent a great deal with porn. You can call that mental weakness. You can call that all kinds of things. Well, I call that resignation and frustration. I call that seclusion and separation. So what am I supposed to do? I live in a country that doesn't give a crap about how I feel. I live in a country that has no interest but to make money. So yesterday I was here, I was on the verge of giving up again with talking about the topics that I want to talk about because that gives me meaning in my life. But everything I see on the internet is just a complete junkyard. I have to take one look at YouTube and all I see is complete junk. People talking about nonsense while there's children prostituting themselves for free on the internet. And nobody says anything about that. Parents just let that happen. You know, they even encourage it by giving their children smartphones. So what do children do? They roam through the internet and then they send each other stuff. And then they look at porn and then they see a woman or a young girl that looks a bit like her and she's doing porn, and then the wish in her increases. Oh, I want to do porn as well. You know, that's how it starts. That's how it continues. Because we allow that to happen. Children shouldn't have access to the internet just like that. You know, in a safe environment, they should be shown how to do it. But to give a child a phone and free access to this world, you know, it's like taking your child and placing it in the middle of Johannesburg and saying, you know, have a go at it, you know, find somebody who can shoot you heroin. That's what we do with children in the internet. It's irresponsible. And I don't care how much you have on your plate, because you have responsibility for your child. And the state says we take responsibility. Well, I don't see that. Where do you take responsibility? You cannot take responsibility for anything anymore. So stop trying that you're doing this, because you don't do it. The only thing you do is making sure that we don't hack ourselves to bits. And that there's like a constant supply of food and energy. That's all you do, right? So in a sense, what the government is just like a janitor. Because emotionally, they don't do shit for us. They don't do shit for us. They just make sure there's enough money so that this lifestyle can keep going. But emotionally, we're completely on our own. They don't take responsibility for you emotionally. They take responsibility for you physically. And that means if there is a pandemic or people are really afraid of having a virus, then you can go and get yourself a vaccination. That's how they can help you. Because if you don't manage to take care of your own fear, that's your problem. Then go and take what they offer you. And so we as the parents and the adults and the grown people, we have to do something about this kind of stuff. You know, we have to get together, and instead of sending ridiculous WhatsApp messages, we should get together and make plans how we can keep children safe from pornography and all this stuff on the internet, you know? So we have to get together and educate ourselves so that we can make better plans for our children, because we have to be aware of what's going on. And if you don't know what's going on, then check it out. Check it out. Go on the internet and check it out. See what young kids are doing, maybe even your kid. And you don't even know that. And they're doing it under your nose. And you don't know that. Doing threesomes, they're doing all kind of weird shit. That has nothing to do with having a family anymore. And I don't see how that could contribute to having a harmonious and happy family. That just creates twisted and emotionally raped people that can then be further victimized because maybe they're pretty, and then, you know, they're just trapped in porn because there was never a man that loved them enough to get them out of there. And so, you know, we have to do something about this kind of stuff. And I get it, it's very difficult. It is very difficult to do something about pornography because a lot of people have watched it themselves, and that means they feel ashamed But what you can do about it is just to step up and say, yeah, I've watched it. I mean, I've watched it, I'm addicted to it. I can't get rid of it. And that's the best way to get rid of it, by just being open about it. I've watched it. I mean, people do it with feeling sexually harassed. They say, me too. Yeah, me too. I watched porn since I was 16. I mean, that's the only way how to deal with it. And then to make a plan. And then to make a plan. And there are people such as I that have used pornography not just for releasing or relieving tension, but that have used pornography to really understand why people do porn. I mean, I have watched hours of this junk, and I have observed it, and I have looked at the faces and the expressions of the people in porn. And the way I see it is that we're all a little bit confused about what to do. You know, we're all trying to do the right thing. We're all trying to be liked. And the range of what you can do these days is incredibly large. I mean, it is confusing because everybody wants to set themselves apart. And if there's a woman that's sexually open and seems to be sexually gifted and that finds it very easy to please men, then suddenly to her a career path opens at the age of 14. Oh wow, I'm gonna do porn. But do we want our children to do this? Do we want our children to have no other ability than to please men? Or our young men to like do the things that they do? I mean, this has nothing to do with being a man or a woman anymore. This has to do with just not giving a shit. And we need people that do give a shit, that say, let's band together and make this world a better place. And one of them is by getting rid of pornography. We have to get rid of this. I mean, literally get rid of this. And I see so many people that have nothing better to do, right? They sit around, they do crochet tutorials, they sit around, they do I don't know what. I mean, probably doing crochet tutorials is still better, but there are things that are happening which are very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. And believe me, I would rather talk about rainbows and butterflies in here. You know, I would rather do the lightful side of society, right? I would rather go and, you know, interview McDonald's for what a good job they're doing, feeding all these people. But I can't do that because it's not the truth. You know, I cannot go around and pretend like this isn't happening. I mean, yesterday I was literally on the verge of collapsing into a job application because at one point it just gets too much. I can't take it anymore. Like the weight of the world is pushing down on me and it's tearing me apart emotionally. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm on the verge of tears because there's so much terror out there. You know, we are being terrorized emotionally by the media, by everyone who's making money with this kind of stuff. And I find that really terrible. And I don't know where to start. You know, I don't know how to deal with this kind of stuff because it's simply too much. So yesterday when I was in my room and I was like devastated, and I was almost, you know, I said, I'm just gonna get a normal job. You know, I'm just gonna get a normal job where I can just go there and sell clothes or something. At least I'm gonna earn money, right? It's gonna be a secure income and I don't have to deal with all this shit anymore. And then I went through that and then I imagined it and I thought, I cannot do this. As much as I would like to, I would hate myself. And I would feel like I turned my back and that I could have chosen a different path. And I said, I'll just push through with it, you know. Okay, then I realized, what do I want to do? Because it's basically, you have to narrow it down. You know, you have to see all the options because I can literally talk about anything. But maybe I simply have to pick one thing. And then I just have to keep talking about it, because you can say, you know, I'm an expert in porn. I'm an expert in pornography. I've studied this stuff for years. I mean, that I really consciously started engaging with it is maybe 2-3 years ago. But what do I do with this information? Well, I wrote a book called Sexual Depression. That's my first book on this topic. And it basically says everything already. Well, it's a very emotional book, like most of my first books. But that's one thing I did with it. And now it's just important to keep going. So this is certainly one of my messages, right? Apart from, you know, you have to do cleansing, you have to do all kinds of stuff. But one of these things certainly is, you know, say no to porn. You know, work on that. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. Very, very difficult. Anyway, you know, I don't know how many of these I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna keep going so that I have a broader range of things I can say about this, because the more I'm going to talk about it, the more information is going to reveal itself from years of having watched it. And this is how gathering insights work, right? So now I just have all that information inside of me. I also have to put it to use. And, you know, once in a while I'm going to do these things. And I'm just going to see what's going to come out. Anyway, thanks for listening.